Day two at Euro 2024. My name's Mark Donaldson alongside Gab Marcotti. It's the boys on tour. I'm in Bonn, the old capital of West Germany. Gab's in Berlin, the new capital of Germany. And we've been watching Italy against Albania. And how nervous were you when 23 seconds in, the Albanians decided to score the opening goal, Gab?
Yeah. I would say pretty darn nervous because given the competition in this group, obviously you need to take points from Albania. Otherwise, you're not going through. And this doesn't just apply to Italy. Obviously, it applies to Croatia and Spain because if they don't take points from Albania, then they may well not go through. So I still don't know if it was a brain fart from Di Marco, if it was the ball slipping out of his hands, as somebody charitably suggested. But we set a record, right? Quickest goal in the history of the Euros, 23 seconds. Well done by Rami. I've lost Mark, so I'll just keep talking. Shall I keep talking? All right, I'll do this live stream on my own while I wait for Donaldson to come back. Yeah, it was obviously a big blow, but I think the really encouraging thing is that they didn't get flustered. They were just kind of like, okay, let's play the handicap. Oh, there you are.
You talking to yourself?
I wasn't sure if the stream was continuing, so I thought, hey, look, let me
keep going.
Let me fill airtime.
Do you know what? I was 23 seconds into our conversation. My Wi-Fi in my room went out. What's the chances?
Amazing.
Same amount of time it took Albania to score the goal. Unfortunately, I've not heard your last minute or so, but I'm sure it was outstanding. But something else that was outstanding was Italy's response. My goodness, they didn't let that affect them, and they came back with a flourish, did they not?
Yeah, I think that first half, Italy, we'll get to it. I'm sure we'll certainly drop in the second, but they did come back with a flourish. And look, anybody who's followed this team knows that it's imperfect, right? There are some very good midfielders, and Spalletti, to his credit, decided to, I think, play a bolder lineup, without a ball winner like Cristante, sort of going, Jorginho and Barella and Pellegrini. And Frattesi, of course, these are all ballers, right? And he's doing this because the strikers, Pion, Scamacca, and Chiesa, there's not much there. And on top of that, he was also bold in playing two left-footed center backs, right? Mm-hmm. Calafiori, I think this is his second or third cap. That was rewarded too. So I like the fact that, unlike the Italy of the past, not so much the last Euros, but certainly the stereotype of Italy, they said, let's not go safety first. Let's try to outplay the opposition. And look, it's easier to do when it's Albania as opposed to when it's Spain. But they went for it, and yeah, I think what you people like to say is the finishing let them down. Is that the term your people use?
My people. Yeah, I'm not talking football after last night. By the way, how good was Pellegrini's delivery for Bastoni's header?
I pinpoint. Look, these guys can play. Like, Italy are producing technical players. They all have, other than Barella, who I don't want to say he's flawless, but can be. Look, they're all. Pellegrini's issue is he gets injured and he's not consistent, and his head drops. Especially when Mourinho is around him, because Mourinho is like his kryptonite, which wasn't so great when he was his coach at Roma. But they have their moments. Chiesa as well. I was WhatsApping with our colleague Tom Hamilton, who of course is at the game, and he wasn't overly impressed with Chiesa, whereas I thought Chiesa was really good. This is what Chiesa does. He plays like this when he's fit, which unfortunately hasn't been very often. I think Italy absolutely need a fit Chiesa, and a Chiesa who plays like what we saw in the first 45 minutes if they're going to do anything in this tournament. And they need to finish better, of course.
They do. There was a VAR check for the second goal. Looked like it was just onside the fullback. It was a nice strike by Barella. And to turn it around pretty quickly, what did that tell you about the Italian mentality, having had that early shot?
I think it was just so extreme, the way the way the goal happened, that it's almost easier to write off, right? When you just make such a colossal blunder, I think it's easier to move on from that than, when the opposition scores a goal through build-up or whatever. You don't question yourself. You say, all right,
yeah,
we just laid an individual egg. Or an individual turd, as you probably more appropriately here.
It's that time of night. We're allowed to say that now, aren't we?
You are allowed to say that. I'm pretty sure. And that shout out, by the way, to former Derby County striker Mario Turdo, the Argentine.
Really? You're going there?
It's a dude's name, man. What do you want me to say? So yeah,
it's got nothing to do with Italy, Albania, though.
It is easier to Mario's an Italian name, I'll have you know. It is easier to bounce back in those conditions, and I think Albania also kind of invited the pressure a little too much. Look, I know.
Yeah, they did.
I don't want to say it's a rerun of the Scotland game, but
wasn't far off it, was it? Because they sat so deep. They didn't know what to do, did they? It was a bit like, I mean, Scotland took the lead against Brazil in 1982, David Neri's Topo. We had no idea what to do. It just angered them. Did the early goal anger Italy?
I think it did. I think it did, but we forced them to kind of realize, all right, let's go and wrap this up. Funny you should mention 1982, because I ran into Alex McLeish outside the stadium yesterday. I had a lovely chat with him. And of course, as my Aberdeen supporting friends always remind me, is had Alex McLeish played alongside the legend that is Willie Miller in 1982, then instead of that Alan Hansen fella nobody's ever heard of, then Scotland would have definitely won that World Cup. But I don't want to bring back bad memories from when we were little.
And we're meant to be talking Italy against Albania. What did you make of Albania tonight? Because here in Bonn, it's probably, I don't know, it's by train, it's under an hour to get to Dortmund. There was a number of Albanians here making a heck of a noise, and they couldn't really believe what had happened to their side to take the lead. But you have all these eventualities. What happens if this happens? But until it actually happens and you score a goal, it was just like, it wasn't the worst thing that could have happened to them, because it was the best thing that could have happened, which became the worst because they had no idea what to do after that, and they just got closer and closer to Strakosha and their own goal.
It felt like, all right, we've taken the lead. Let's sit deep and let's see, maybe we can get something on the counter. Strakosha is an outstanding goalkeeper.
Yes.
We create density in front of the goal. They have all these little guys running around. If we've got bodies there, we'll stop them. And look, I think as a game plan, it wasn't terrible. But the problem is you can't sit off so deep that these midfielders, if they have time and space, they can punish them. I mean, they're not Kevin De Bruyne. They're not going to hit like a defense-splitting pass when they have three people on top of them. But if you give Pellegrini a little bit of time, if you give Frattesi a little bit of time, if you give Jorginho time and you don't go press him, which I thought was kind of unforgivable, then they can pick you out and they can create chances. And I also want to give a shout out to Scamacca. I thought obviously he didn't score, and you can point to the chances that he missed. I think at least two come to mind. But I thought he worked tirelessly. He was unselfish. He was very, very clever. He opened up space for his teammates, which is exactly what you're supposed to do.
Playing a game with you now, you've seen all four Group B teams. Never mind the result, just performance-based. Give me a 1 top to 4 bottom of the 4 teams that you saw today, with Croatia losing to Spain 3-0 earlier in the day. So
with the caveat that neither Spain nor Italy, I thought, put in a 90-minute performance. And you can argue that Spain didn't need to. Fair enough.
No.
I would argue that I would put Croatia at the bottom. I was really disappointed. I thought the approach from Dalic to that game was wrong, even though they had chances before Spain scored. And then I would second from bottom, I have to put Albania, because you can't be gifted a goal like that and then continue playing the way you did. And again, I thought Italy were really, really good for 45 minutes, an hour. Spain, I thought, did better than that.
They were good. Yeah, they were really good. So Spain getting off to a flying start. Italy, I mean, the second half, it just petered. You always felt like it was big brother, little brother in the backyard, and it was just, they were always at arm's length, the Albanians. There was a bit of a nervy moment right in the 90th minute, though, Gab, when the ball was played right across the face. Hearts and mouths for you?
Very much. Ray Manai getting away. I thought that was maybe the only misstep Calafiori made in the game. I thought Calafiori was exceptional. I mean, that whole left side, Calafiori, Di Marco, other than his mistake, obviously, I thought they did a lot of damage on that flank. And in fact, looking at that, I wonder, man, if maybe he'd gone with Manai earlier, then because regular viewers will know that I love my Armando Broja, but he always lets me down. I'm glad he let me down today. But that was not a good performance from him at all. And I was a bit surprised that, Silvino waited so long to bring on Manai, who at least gives you something a little bit different, especially when you're chasing a game like that.
We will be previewing England's opener against Serbia very shortly with James Ollie, who'll be joining us. I just want one final word. I want to talk fashion. Now, I can't really talk, given the fact this looks like the patterns you get from an 80s disco ball, this thing I'm wearing. But it's Spalletti. He's got this beautiful suit. And then
I'm going to grab a Jules gear. Look.
That's all right. That's company man.
Yeah,
but what's with the stuff on the back of Spalletti's suit? I mean, I can't be having that. It's sartorial elegance. Does that count, or is that just too far? Fashion faux pas.
It's very fashion forward, right? Well, it brings together, the old style sort of 1960s sort of zip. Yeah, exactly. With the suit. Why not? Open your mind, open your horizons.
Oh, I'll open it. I was wearing a skirt yesterday, as they called it, my kilt and everything like that. But hey ho, each to their own.
You had your sporn too?
Of course, I had everything. Well, except one thing, but we don't need them when we wear a kilt, do we? Anyway, we've gone from 1982 to what's under kilts. You've had your rude word and everything like that. I tell you what, we'll have a quick break, and when we come back, we can discuss how England are going to get on and what's their team going to be against Serbia. James Ollie will join us to give us one or two clues after this. Welcome back to ESPN FC live on day 2 of Euro 2024. Now, as someone that flew from the United States to Frankfurt, then got the train down to Munich, and then got the train up today to Bonn, it's not easy. There are a lot of delays. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be, but I've not had anywhere near as many issues as our next guest, James Ollie, who's joining us from Gelsenkirchen. You told me not to do that and poke the bear, did you? Because you've not had the best day, you poor wee lamb.
I don't think people want to know about this. It's just, I think there was and I don't know how far this resonates, but I think there's a sort of traditional stereotype of German trains being extremely efficient, running on time, being like clockwork. I've been here now, 5 days, and they don't. I mean, they are not great. So yes, I've had quite a trying day making a relatively short trip from near England's base in Erfurt to Essen, which is where I am now, which is a short train away, theoretically, from Gelsenkirchen tomorrow, where England will play Serbia.
Yeah, what's happened to Gab's helicopter when it's not in use, Gab? Can you not send it to see if you can pick James up?
To be fair, I flew back from Munich to Berlin, and I had no issues whatsoever. So I feel for you on the railway. No, but on a serious note, I was here for the 2006 World Cup, and it was because it was fantastic. Went everywhere by train. The trains were fantastic, brand spanking new. They were all on time. A lot of my German colleagues is like, yeah, those are the same trains from 18 years ago. We simply haven't updated them, and that might be part of the reason why. I mean, it's been a common complaint, I think, for Germans as well. I think Nicholas Füllkrug made the joke that he when he joined up in the German base camp, he said, "Yeah, out of respect, I didn't want to make the German railways look bad, so I came the day before by car."
Are England going to put a smile on your face tomorrow, James?
I mean, they should. They should.
There was a pause.
Well, look. Okay, here's the situation. I think with England, there's a lot of the sort of narrative around England is that because half of this squad, half of the 26-man group, were not in Qatar. It's an idea that there's a massive evolution, that it's a squad imbued with new, young talent. Players who have not had the experience of failure in the past, who are kind of only know the Southgate way or the Southgate era, and they come to make that final step that England need to make to finally win a trophy. And I was looking this afternoon on one of the many train delays that I had at the England-France quarterfinal in Qatar, which is only 18 months ago. You know, you've got to remember this is not a regular tournament cycle; it is a little bit shorter. The team that started that game: Pickford, Walker, Stones, Maguire, Shaw, Henderson, Rice, Bellingham, Saka, Kane, Foden. Now, there is a doubt about Luke Shaw in the first game, but we know he's been brought because they think he'll be fit. Gareth actually tonight was talking quite positively about he may even be able to play as a substitute against Serbia in the first game. So let's slot Shaw into that team.
Okay.
You're only missing Maguire and Henderson. And I think everybody would have probably have said after that tournament that those were the two weak links in that team. So 9 of the 11, if everybody's fit and all things being equal, are still from that team that wasn't good enough in Qatar and got knocked out in a very tight game of fine margins. Kane misses the penalty in the last 5-10 minutes, whatever it was. You know, could have gone to extra time, all of that. So I'm not quite sure there's this sort of progression in the team and in the squad that people think. So I think England have still got the same question to answer, which they had 18 months ago, which is, can they deliver in the biggest games against the biggest teams on foreign soil? And that last bit is really important because they won the World Cup at Wembley. They reached the Euro 96 semi-final at Wembley. They reached the last Euros playing 6 of the 7 games at Wembley. And now they're here in Germany. And that really is an unknown. They don't have the pedigree. They're not proven at this level in these competitions. And Serbia, I think, will be a tricky start for them. You know, they've got obviously everyone's focusing on Vlahovic and Mitrovic in terms of the attacking talent that they have. And England's weak point is in defence. That is still the issue. Mm-hmm. They're still not great without the ball. And I'm not sort of suggesting they can't win it, because I do think they've got the individual players to be able to go and win a tournament like this. But I think the question that is being asked of England is still the same as it was 18 months ago, which is why I'm not quite sure why they're favourites ahead of someone like France, who obviously have the pedigree. They've been there, they've done it. And then we look at the teams that have started really well, the heavyweights, Spain, Germany. I know Italy weren't that great tonight, but they've all won. They've all looked, in moments pretty good. So
he was eating his pizza. You didn't watch the game. You didn't watch the first half. They were really good. They were really, really good. You didn't watch the first.
You're making. Well, no. Do you know what, Gab? I was on a train. It may stun you tonight. I was on yet another train. But no, I'm saying. I mean, in many ways, you're making my point for me, which is that the sort of heavyweights, the powerhouses, Italy, the defending European champions, they've been there, they've done it, they've won it. I just get very uncomfortable with this idea that, England are favourites and England are going to come here and their big players are going to turn up and they're going to deliver. They have not got the track record of doing that, which is not to say they can't do it, but they've got to prove it in a way that other countries don't.
I think James needs some cheering up here. Look, you're doing the typical thing, right? I'm going to out you as an England fan. I do the same with Italy, right? We're more likely to look at all the negatives and so on. The reality is, I think it's a good thing that 9 of the 11 players are back because, like you said, it was so close against France. I think it's a good thing that actually the core of this group is generally the same as the one that reached the semifinals of the World Cup in 2018 and lost on penalties in the last Euros. I think these are actually positives because you've got people who learn from defeat and who grow. And if they're still there, it's because they're better than some of the other guys they brought in. Now, did I need to see Adam Wharton at the Euros as opposed to somebody else? I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't seen much of him for Palace, so I don't know. When we can go and quibble about that, hopefully that guy will never play because everybody will be fit and will be doing well if you're an England fan. What I find interesting, I want to ask you about, is these reports that he's going to move Trent into midfield. Now, obviously, we say that Southgate is conservative and sort of safety first and whatever. But look, here he's doing something that some people will say is logical, but which, I think other than a couple of friendlies, he's never really done for England. I think he might have done it. He did it as a kid for Liverpool, obviously the youth team, but he's done it very rarely in the first team. How do you see that planning out? And what's his mindset there?
Well, you're right, Gab, because I think that strikes to the absolute heart of the whole debate around Southgate, which is, you've got all these attacking players. How are you going to make them click? I mean, the big difference between we talk about the 9 of the 11. The big difference, of course, is that since then, Jude Bellingham's gone on to great things at Real Madrid. Declan Rice is now a £100 million player. Phil Foden was the player of the year in England. Harry Kane's just scored 44 goals in Germany. The attacking players individually have developed so much at club level. That's where the expectation comes from. What I'm saying is that then go and put it together with England is the unknown. My understanding is that there is a debate going on, or there was a debate going on about whether it would be Trent Alexander-Arnold or Conor Gallagher. It's between those two to start alongside Declan Rice in what is probably going to be a 4-2-3-1 system for England tomorrow night. And that, I think after Iceland, when they lost 1-0 at home, they weren't great. Yes, there were a lot of mitigating circumstances. It's a warm-up game. Who cares really about the result? And a lot of players needed the minutes. They were managing a lot of players' fitness through that at that stage. Bellingham obviously didn't even play because he was given a week off after winning the Champions League with Real Madrid. But I do wonder whether Southgate's slightly obsessed with this idea of balance in the team. And when he talks about balance, that kind of implies an inherent caution and a conservatism that I know, Gab, you've written about before. I've certainly done the same. And I've sort of felt all week that he would lean towards Gallagher because he might think, wow, the attacking players that Serbia have got, maybe we need a runner in there alongside Rice. If you're asking Rice to essentially anchor the midfield and play someone who's slightly more advanced, Trent, obviously a defender sort of by trade, but not, is an unknown in that position, as you say. That is a risk, but maybe it will unlock those 4 attacking players ahead of him: the Bellinghams, the Kanes, the Fodens, the Sakas. But he's talked really positively about Trent learning that role, understanding that role. From what I'm told from sources, they've been training with Trent in midfield this week. So I think it leans towards the idea that Trent maybe will start against Serbia tomorrow. But that's the ultimate balancing act. Does he go for it, or does he think, actually, exactly as Calvin Phillips was in the last Euros, I want someone who just will sit in a little bit more, someone who maybe can press a bit better, won't kick on as an 8, as a 6, but wants to be an 8, will actually just sit there and hold a little bit more, which is what Conor Gallagher will give you. And that really is the only unknown. I think we know the other 10. I think it's pretty set.
It's not a case of playing devil's advocate here, but from the outside looking in, is there any way you can get the 4+ Palmer and maybe Rice. And you've spoken about Conor Gallagher. And look, it's a bit gung-ho, but you tell me a defence that could cope with that front five. I mean, it might be 3-2 or 4-3.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Well, there is a way of doing it. Now they used to play 4-3-3 and play Rice as the single pivot, and then play. Yeah. You could play Foden and Bellingham as the eights, and then you can get Saka, Palmer, and Kane in the team as the front three. I don't think he won't do that, and I think the Iceland game shows you why, because they lost Kobe Mainoo lost. They basically lost the ball. Kobe Mainoo was playing more as an eight because that's clearly his natural instinct is to get forward a little bit more. And they got done on transition. And Gareth Southgate, he did an interview with us, which went out when did it go out? This week. And he talked a lot about how Didier Deschamps sort of got killed for, being too cautious and too conservative in his teams. And then he ended that answer by saying, but then when a team gets done on transition, if you're too open, people kill you for it. And you say you're naive and you've not given due respect, due credit to the opposition. And that answer's really sort of stuck in my mind about that. So he's sort of flitted between 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3 on occasion since Qatar, but really it's been 4-2-3-1. And I think his gamble will be to play Trent in that system rather than playing 4-3-3 and getting them all in, which is maybe what people will want to see if England don't win the first game. And I do think because there's this whole kind of conversation around Southgate's future and, is he going to stay on after the Euros? Is the only scenario where he does that if he wins it. If they don't win that first game, and they've won all three of their tournament games under Southgate, the first games of every tournament they've won, and it's just sort of helped set the tone for it. And I think that's why there won't be any complacency from England tomorrow. I think they'll be bang at it. But if they don't win that first game, that's where the questions will come in and say, well, especially when you see, Germany scoring 5 and Spain scoring 3. And it's been quite an exciting opening to the tournament, isn't it? If England sort of stink the place out tomorrow or kind of, maybe win 1-0 with a set piece or whatever, then I think those questions are only going to grow louder.
Gab, who should Gareth Southgate play if what James is saying is correct, which we believe it is? It's between Conor Gallagher and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Which of those pair would you hand the starting jersey to?
So I feel a little bad for Conor Gallagher because there's this idea that he puts in a shift, he works really, really hard. And, and this is kind of what I struggle with, hasn't been part of a debate, right? But Jude Bellingham has played in this advanced role for Real Madrid all season long, right? And so back with England, 4-2-3-1, let's play Jude there, right? Never mind that for most of his career, that's not where he actually played. Conor Gallagher for Chelsea has effectively played an attacking midfield all year long, right? He had Enzo and Moises Caicedo behind him. Now with England, it becomes, Rice is good carrying the ball forward, and I want somebody more solid. So let's got Conor Gallagher to play in defensive midfield. Look, Conor Gallagher would play goalkeeper if you ask him to, and he would give you 1,000% effort. But I kind of feel it would make sense if you are going to press and be proactive. I would prefer the idea of playing maybe 4-2-3-1 with Conor Gallagher actually in that 10 to go and disrupt the opposition's build-up play, if that's what you're going to do. Now, we know Southgate's not going to do that. We know Southgate is conservative, so more likely he's going to sit back. And if you're going to do that, I kind of prefer Trent's long-term passing, especially because my fear with Serbia is that because, they're going to be cautious too. And they've got this issue where we have so many attacking players that we're going to ask Sergej Milinkovic-Savic to, effectively sit very, very deep. They have to carry, Tadic plus 2 big strikers in Vlahovic and Mitrovic. Now, if these guys run around and they start, this is the other thing to think about, right? If Vlahovic and Mitrovic put in a shift, which they sometimes do, and they go and they let England have the ball, and they go and they start, getting up Rice's backside. Rice is a phenomenal player, but he is not necessarily the most press resistant guy out there. So maybe having another passer alongside him, whether it's Bellingham deeper, which again, I don't think he's going to do, or whether it's Trent, might actually make sense. Because you know what? You look at that back four, and other than Stones, and that's another option, I suppose, Stones stepping up into midfield. We've seen him do that with City. Do we expect him to do that with England? Not so much. But in that back four, other than Stones, you don't really have, I think, anybody who's particularly good at passing and kind of being that extra outlet in the build-up if they do press you. So I think these are some of the other thoughts that haven't maybe been part of the conversation, but which are probably going through Southgate's head as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, yeah, you're right in the sense that Stones, I don't think will. I mean, the problem is because England have lost Maguire, there's no way that Stones won't be just anchored at centre back. It looks like it's going to be Martin Gahey who plays alongside him. I mean, Southgate talked quite positively tonight about, as I said earlier, that Luke Shaw could maybe play some part against Serbia, but he won't start. So that will be Trippier at left back. It will be Walker at right back, and then it will be, as we're talking about the two, and then I think the front four have kind of picked themselves really at this point in the tournament. Given what they've done at club level and and their reputation and everything else. So, yeah, I would expect a positive start from England. I really would. It's ingrained in me. I'm of the generation to think that something is going to go wrong. It's just the way we are with England.
You're becoming Scottish. What's happening here?
Yeah, well, I know, but I'm very uncomfortable with this favourites tag that's going around because they haven't earned it. England have not earned it.
They have earned it. Stop it.
They've not earned it.
Listen. Well, because you think France are better. France probably are better, Mark. But first of all, I'm gonna correct me if I'm wrong because I know you're betting there, Mark. But
yeah.
The reason England are favourites doesn't have to do with the fact that bookies
money.
It's money, right?
It's volume of money
in England, and bookies just want money to be the same on both sides, so they make the England odds shorter. But
guess what, Gab? Over here in Germany, England aren't favourites.
Well,
Germany are favourites, or one of the favourites. It's basically volume of cash. I think France, you get better odds for England in Germany than you will back home because the bookies don't want any liabilities because you get your 50 pence each way Grand National, grannies and granddads doing it.
You're right. But you couldn't give England away the last few tournaments. You would be seeing all of these bookmaker offers of kind of like, here's a couple of extra points here and there, on the week before the start of the tournament, whatever. Pile onto England. Show some patriotism. All of this. I can tell you, having been with England since they landed here and having done the 2 warm-up games, I've basically been with England since the start of the month. And the questions they get from foreign journalists as well as the English journalists are, you are the favourites for this tournament. Can you handle the pressure of that? And there's variations on that theme. Okay, so they are seen. I don't agree with it, but that seems to be the consensus that they are the favourites.
You have to step up. If England aren't first favourites, if we think France is better, I agree with you. France are better. Then they're second favourites, right? It's not like it's not the middle of the pack. So listen, I don't know getting bent out of shape over the fact that we haven't earned the right to be second favourites. You've been a second in the last Euros. You lost a very close game to the team that lost the World Cup final on penalties. The World Cup before that, you reached the semifinals. So put these things together, and you've earned this spot. You have really
what you're describing is right, and there is a final step to make. There is a final step to make, and the assumption from favouritism is that they will make it, and I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that automatically they will make it. They may well do so, and obviously I hope that is the case. But to just anticipate that they are going to do it, and it's based on the individual quality of England's attacking players, not on the collective, not on the fact that they don't have a good centre-back partnership, not on the fact that they are relying solely on Declan Rice to anchor that midfield. And actually, they do get done on transition quite a lot by teams that are quite good on the counter-attack. All of those things notwithstanding, they are expected to just make that final step and win the Euros. And I'm just saying, I don't think it's a fait accompli.
I think your words kind of betray the actual feeling here, right? Because we're previewing England against Serbia, and all we're talking about is, well, England shouldn't really be second favorites because they haven't earned it or whatever else. Like, I agree with you, right? So they're on the same, going to be in the same half of the draw as France. So if they both win their groups, one of those two isn't getting to the final, right? That's just the way the tournament is set up. I do wonder a little bit, having like you seen, remember the battle days with England and sort of the failures pre-Southgate. Shouldn't we be talking about Serbia more? Or is it that just, well, even if, they don't win against Serbia, it's okay because the rest of the groups the rest of the group is made up of Muppets, and so we'll still get through. So let's have this big debate about whether they're favorites or second favorites or third favorites, and can they live up to it?
I think you're right. You're right. England had a big issue with the opening tournament games pre-Southgate. It was a major problem, and it was something that they talked about a lot. And I know that they did a lot of work on it actually with the psychologist Steve Peters, when they were talking about, look, you need to try and hit the ground running in these tournaments. That's why I made the point earlier that in the 3 previous Southgate tournaments, they have won the first game. And I think in was it Tunisia in 2018, they won it pretty much in the last minute. They weren't great, but it just sets the tone for the tournament. You're right. We should be talking to Serbia more. It's not an easy game, but I guess the caveat or the sort of counterpoint to that is, well, this expanded format means that, third place teams can get through. It doesn't really have the jeopardy that it used to. So you sort of think they'll leave it. I mean, I can't see England losing tomorrow. I think they will win tomorrow. I'm just not sort of convinced it's going to be the sort of, sweeping all before them that has been anticipated by many people who clearly aren't, wearing the scars on their heart like I am.
I want to wrap this up shortly, but I, as someone with no skin in the game here, but as someone that grew up in the United Kingdom, and we got all the English commentary and whatever, and we got the English newspapers. 86, especially Italia 1990, don't you dare come home without this trophy. It's a bit like Scotland in that stupid 1978 World Cup when we'd won it prior to even going there. Ali's Tartan Army. But then with England and Mexico and in Italy as well, France 98, with the media, this is just a perception of mine. It might be totally wrong. It was a case of they built them up so much. What you are saying is totally the opposite of that. So what has happened when you've got Harry Kane, who's top scorer in Europe, and now you're suddenly saying, oh, I'm a bit worried, I don't like being favourites and Serbia. There's got to be a happy medium here. There's got to be a middle ground, is there not?
Well, I can't and would never try and speak for the whole of the English media, but what I would say is I think that narrative is linked inextricably to Gareth Southgate. He has managed now more games for England than Bobby Robson. I think it's only Walter Winterbottom and Alf Ramsey are ahead of him. This is his 4th tournament. The cycle, and let's not forget the work that he's done. He has done a phenomenal job, I think, in redefining what it means to play for England. These players want to be here. That wasn't always the case pre-2016 when he took charge, and they've gone on a fantastic journey. They've won penalty shootouts, they've won knockout games, they've really broken down. They beat Germany in the last Euros. That was a massive thing for England to beat a big team. All right, again at Wembley, but they still did that in a knockout game. They've knocked down these hurdles time after time after time. But I think the reason why there's this pressure, aside from, and it's certainly a component part, as we've talked about already, the individual development of Bellingham, of Kane, of Foden, of Saka, all these players, but also it's around Gareth Southgate, because when he took charge, England did not have a group of players that were capable or believed or even, as I say, wanted to really play for England and really commit themselves wholeheartedly and open themselves up to the potential pain of not succeeding with England. What he's got now is a buy-in and a group of players that are good enough to actually go and win it. And the question really is, have they outgrown the manager? Is this manager now somebody who can take this group and the quality that they have and take that final step? Or is he, in fact, having taken them so far, is he the one that's holding them back? And that's, I think, why you're seeing a lot of this narrative around the England team about, well, the only thing they can do from here is win it, because that's the only thing that Southgate can do from here is win it if he's going to stay on to 2026.
Prediction time. Gab, let's start with you. England against Serbia.
I think it's going to be nervy. I think I have all the reservations about Southgate, and also all the praise that a lot of people have for many of the same reasons that James cited. But I don't think Serbia are. It's not their fault. They're not a very well balanced team, and while a lot of those names are familiar, some of them aren't coming off great seasons. So for that reason, I'm going to say I think England are going to win 2-0, 2-1, something like that. But again, it could be something where they don't play particularly well, and it's a penalty, Foden falling over in the box, some screw up somewhere else.
Okay, 16 goals so far in this tournament in the 4 games. It's not going to be 0-0, is it, James? England going to win?
6-0 England. No, no, I'm joking. No, I look. England have kept 2 clean sheets in the last 7 games. Not an entirely relevant statistic, given it's warm-up games and friendlies and whatever. I don't see them keeping a clean sheet against Serbia, but I think I think their firepower will be enough to get them over the line. I'm going to say 3-1 England.
See, your positivity's increased since we started. It's Gab's having this effect. And just given the day that you've had, and given the fact that all 3 of us are in our hotel room, and the fact you horsed a pizza in about 18 seconds, so you'll be getting some indigestion overnight. We're all in hotel rooms. We all have these little mini bars. I'm going to give you this to cheer you up. You can have that, okay? I'll pass it through the monitor from Bon. You pick up. Good lad. There you go.
Thank you.
And by the way, what about these? Fried oregano, or whatever they call it. I mean, what is? I don't want to know what.
Oregano. What's this oregano nonsense? Oregano. Come on, you can do better.
Oregano. Hey, see, well, at least we didn't concede after 23 seconds when we faced Germany. The problem is we did concede 5 after that, whereas the Italians managed to turn it around. I was going to say good luck, England. I can't say that. May the best team win tomorrow, James. Your lecky bills needing bid. What's happening here?
I'm staying in. I told you I was staying in a dodgy hotel. There we go. No, it's fine now. It's fine. Look, we need to end this because that power's going to run out. I'm going to lose Wi-Fi.
Okay,
it's all done.
Right. Okay, we're done. We're back tomorrow. ESPN FC. Enjoy that red wine. Bye for now.